So we're here on the European leg of the Lauryn Hill and Fugees tour, and today we're in Manchester, England at the Co-op Live Arena. It's the 4th show of the tour, which I feel like is this sweet spot for the whole production hitting its stride, and for me getting my rig and sounds super dialed in. I've got some really incredible keyboards on this tour, and I'm doing some really interesting things with how they communicate and interact with each other. So let's check it out.
Sweet day, she loved me like no other before. Come on.
First up, I've got this guy, the Arturia Polybrute 12, one of the absolute sickest keyboards to be released in the recent era. The Polybrute is a powerful semi-modular analog polysynth. I love it for its rich, deep analog sounds, which can also be as complicated and layered and evolving as what we're used to from digital VSTs. This keyboard is really special, and I did a whole video showcasing my favorite presets, which you can check out here.
Now the joy of my world, it is in Zion.
Next up, I've got the Mellotron M4000D. This has a bunch of sounds in it, but usually I just leave it on the classic flute and string sounds and blend between the two manually during the show. I also definitely overuse the pitch switch and the tuning knob. And then, of course, there's the Sequential Prophet 6. The Prophet has been a staple part of my rig from the very beginning. Other boards come and go, but I always need my Prophet. I definitely use it a lot for its huge analog pad sounds, but the Prophet is also my go-to keyboard for most synth lead sounds. Now, so far, everything in my rig has been very analog or vintage sounding, but the last keyboard is different. I play my Yamaha Montage the least during the show, but it's the most important keyboard in the rig. Now, don't get me wrong, there are certain things that digital excels at, and when it's time for one of those earth-shaking stadium synth pads that takes up the whole frequency spectrum, I'm gonna go to the Montage for that all day. But if I have the choice, I'm almost always going to choose an analog pad on the Polybrute or an analog lead on the Prophet over a digital pad or lead on the Montage. But the Montage is still the most important board in the rig for 2 reasons. The first is that I'm using it to control all the presets and tempos across all the other keyboards. It's like the MIDI brain of my whole rig. I've talked about this probably too many times on this channel, so I'm not going to fully cover it here. But essentially, I create a performance that's named for each song in the set, and I embed MIDI program change messages into that performance. So when I load that performance, the MIDI messages go out to the other keyboards in the rig, and everything switches to the right sounds at the push of a button. If you're interested in doing this yourself, I did an in-depth tutorial, which you can check out here. But yeah, I wouldn't really be able to do what I do without this key functionality, because I'm not just playing basic sounds, and I'm not just playing a few sounds. I'm playing complicated, different sounds in every song, and I'd never be able to remember them all, much less switch to them on time. Basically, if you're gonna play a bunch of complicated sounds across a bunch of keyboards, you have to manage your patches in some kind of centralized way. The second reason that the Montage is the most important board in the rig is that if I had to, I could do the whole show on it. And in fact, I have had to. I had to just 1 week ago in Kenya, actually, because it was the only keyboard from my rig that the backline company could get me. And there have been other times when we've been in places that aren't major music markets and my options have been super limited. But there's never been a time that I couldn't get a Montage or at least a Yamaha Modi X. And these things are just like Swiss Army knives. I carry around all my settings and patches on a thumb drive, and I can load them into whatever Montage I happen to be playing wherever I am. And I have every sound I need neatly organized under the song name in set list order. And you know, like I said, it's not gonna sound nearly as dope as if I have all my stuff, but it'll get me by in a pinch. So that's my rig for this tour. And by the way, I have a bunch of videos on all kinds of aspects of being a professional musician and touring and all that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna drop this one for you to check out here next. Girl!